At my father's retirement dinner, he clinked his glass, raised it high, and said with that smug, politician-like smile he wore so well, "To my real children, the ones who made me proud." Everyone clapped. Cameras flashed. Champagne flowed. Then he turned, locked eyes with me like I was a stain on his perfect evening. "You can leave." That was it. No explanation. No shame. Just a death sentence spoken like a toast. I blinked. My body flushed hot, then cold. I stood, legs trembling, trying not to cry in front of my mother's pearls, my sister's Botoxed grin, my brother's gleaming wife. But then, my husband stood too. And what he did next, it silenced the room. "My name is Leah. And from wherever you're watching this, stay with me. Because have you ever stood in a room full of family and felt like an uninvited guest at your own funeral? My father used to call me his little legacy. He'd tell stories of how I read law books before bedtime, how I argued with the TV during political debates. But when I turned down Harvard to marry a man he said was beneath us, I became nothing. And tonight, he made it official. I watched my husband, calm, poised, reach into his blazer, and pull out the velvet blue folder I'd begged him not to bring. "Since you're making announcements, sir," he said, "let's make one more." He opened it. Inside, the deed. To the house. To the retirement fund. To the entire damn trust that I, not his precious other children, legally owned. Gasps. My brother dropped his fork. My sister's lips parted like a glitching doll. "This man you just kicked out your daughter for?" my husband said. "He's living in a house your daughter bought. Every bite of your dinner tonight was paid for with her work, her sacrifice, her loyalty." My father's smile cracked. And then my husband turned to me, gently pulled out my chair, and whispered, "You ready to go, Mrs. Blake?" I nodded. My heart was breaking. But this was the beginning of a reckoning. We didn't just walk out, we walked through fire. The room stayed frozen as we passed. My heels clicked on the marble floor like gunshots. My father stared, mouth slightly open, as if his retirement roast had turned into a courtroom and he'd just lost the case. Outside, the night air felt like freedom, cool, sharp, real. But inside me, a storm. I wanted to scream, to cry, to smash that champagne bottle over his fake mahogany table. Instead, I gripped my husband's hand. "Did I go too far?" he asked softly. I looked at him. My man, the only one in that room who never needed me to be perfect to love me. "No," I whispered. "You didn't go far enough. Because this wasn't just about one night. This was about every time he told people I was the disappointment. Every time he praised my siblings' store-bought successes while ignoring the empire I'd built from scratch. Every time he called me dramatic when I needed help. Every time I walked into a room and became wallpaper. I wasn't going to be silent anymore. Back at home, I opened my laptop. All the documents were ready. I'd been preparing for months. Bank transfers, title changes, scheduled revocations, everything tied to my name, retirement homes, fund management, business shares. I had the power to pull it all. You see, what my father didn't realize was this. While he bragged about my siblings' jobs at law firms, I owned one. While he mocked my soft career, I was flipping companies in silence, writing checks that paid his bills. And I was done doing it quietly. I pressed send. Just one button. And like dominoes, the lights would start going out in his world. Not because I wanted revenge. Because I wanted clarity. He needed to see what it was like to be erased. The next morning, my phone buzzed nonstop. Texts from my mother. Missed calls from my brother. Emails titled "Please" and "Emergency." But the best one? A voicemail from my father. "Leah, what have you done? Call me. We need to talk." And just like that, the silence I'd been forced into for years was now his. I didn't call him back. Instead, I sat in my home office, the one no one in my family had ever seen, lit by the soft morning sun, and played his voicemail on loop. "Leah, what have you done? Call me. We need to talk." Suddenly, he needed me. The same man who told me to leave in front of 50 guests like I was the help. I stared at the pause screen on my laptop. The trust transfer documents. The board member removal notices. The corporate filings that tied his financial lifeline to mine. I thought I'd feel guilty, but all I felt was peace. Until my phone rang again. It was my mother. I didn't answer. She texted. He's having chest pains. He's not well. Be the bigger person. Be the bigger person? Where was that advice when I cried on the bathroom floor after he told me marrying Aaron would ruin my pedigree? Where was that empathy when I offered him business help and he laughed in my face because I didn't wear a suit and tie? Where was that grace when I asked him, just once, to say he was proud of me? That night, there was a knock at our gate. It was my sister, still in her cocktail dress from the dinner. Makeup smudged. Hair tangled. I watched her through the camera feed. She was pacing, talking to herself, clutching her phone like it might save her. I pressed the intercom. Yes. Leah, please. Let me in. What do you want? I didn't know. I didn't know it was your money. That it was all yours. Dad said he told us you didn't have anything. He said you were a lost cause. I bit my lip, staring at the monitor. Funny, I said. He always told me you were the future of the family. Silence. Then she whispered, We're losing the house, Leah. I wanted to laugh. Or cry. Or maybe both. Because now they were finally feeling it. The loss. The weight. The unraveling. I buzzed the gate open. Not out of kindness, but because I wanted her to see what real power looked like up close. She stepped in slowly. Timid. Like I might attack her. I didn't. I simply said, You've been in his shadow your whole life. I built my own son. She sat on the edge of our velvet couch, like it might bite her. Gone was the smug, eye-rolling sister who once told me I'd wasted my brains on a man. Gone was the woman who paraded around our father's praise like a tiara. In her place was a girl, scared, cracked open, and suddenly small. Dad's having meetings, she said, voice shaking. He's trying to fix it. But everything's locked. The accounts. The assets. Even his condo's under review. He said you froze the holding company? I sipped my tea slowly. Not froze. Just redirected. Legally. My name was on everything, remember? He just never bothered to read the fine print. She blinked, stunned. I leaned in. You know the trust fund you used to shop at Saks every summer? That was me. The education account that paid for your grad school? Me. The corporate vehicle that let Dad buy that ridiculous boat. I tapped my chest. All. Me. She was quiet for a long time. Then, why didn't you ever say anything? I laughed softly. Would you have listened? Would he? The truth was, I stayed silent out of survival. I wanted love, not leverage. I thought if I gave enough, one day he'd look at me like I was enough. But betrayal teaches you to stop asking for crumbs and start baking your own damn bread. She looked down at her hands. I think he's scared. I've never seen him like this. Good, I said coldly. Let him sit in it. She looked up. Do you hate us? I didn't answer immediately. Instead, I walked to the bookshelf and pulled down the framed photo of us. Me, her, and our brother. Taken when I was 13. I was in the middle, grinning, arms wrapped around them. We were kids, I said. But somewhere along the way, I became the enemy. She stood slowly, eyes wet. I was jealous of you, she admitted. You were always so sure of yourself. That hit me, because I was never sure. I was just loud enough to hide the breaking. She moved toward the door. I'm sorry, Leah. I didn't stop her. Not yet. Because this wasn't about apologies. It was about consequence. And tomorrow? It was my brother's turn to come knocking. He didn't knock. He barged in. Literally shoved the front door open like he owned the place, forgetting, of course, that I bought it. Leah, what the hell are you doing? No hello. No apology. Just rage dressed in entitlement. He stormed into the living room, eyes wild, suit wrinkled, like he hadn't slept. I stayed seated. Aaron stood behind me, arms crossed, silent, my shield without needing to say a word. You humiliated Dad, my brother snapped. He's not eating. He's not sleeping. He's paranoid you're trying to destroy him. I tilted my head. I'm not trying, I said calmly. I already did. He flinched, like he never expected me to admit it. You've always been cold, he hissed. Calculating. Dad said you were dangerous, and he was right. No, I said. What's dangerous is watching your family pretend you don't exist, and still funding their lives out of guilt.
He scoffed.
You want us to suffer? I stood, and I walked right up to him. I want you to remember, I said. Remember when I called you crying after Dad disowned me for marrying Aaron, and you told me to grow up? He looked away. Remember when I asked you to co-sign on Mom's hospital bill because Dad wouldn't, and you told me she wasn't your responsibility? He stayed quiet. Remember when I graduated early and nobody showed up? When I opened my own firm and not a single one of you said, congratulations?
Still nothing.
Tell me again, I said, voice sharp now. Who made who suffer? He dropped onto the armchair like his legs gave out. You're really cutting us off, he whispered. Completely. I nodded. I gave you 15 years, I said. 15 years of paying bills, cleaning up messes, and begging for basic love in return. You gave me silence. He rubbed his face with both hands. What do we do now? I smiled faintly. Try living without me the way you pretended to for years. He looked up, eyes red now. You're serious. As death, I said. And for once, I saw it on his face, that flicker of realization that I wasn't just the sister in the background anymore. I was the reckoning, the one they raised to be silent, who chose to roar instead. They thought I was finished. But I hadn't even started. The next morning, my father's name hit the press. Front page headline on a business blog that used to worship him. Patterson legacy unravels. Family empire quietly built on daughter's fortune. The article didn't come from me, but I knew where the leak came from. People talk when their accounts freeze. When their private schools start sending warning emails. When their Amex cards decline at steakhouse dinners. My inbox lit up. Attorneys, board members, former colleagues. Most were in disbelief. Some tried to sympathize. A few congratulated me. But one email stopped me cold. Subject, I always knew. From my godmother, the only one in the family who ever truly saw me. You did what I always prayed you would. You didn't let their love define your worth. You built yourself in their absence. And now you're walking through them like fire. I'm proud of you, baby. I read it 3 times before I cried. Not out of sadness, but because for once someone said it, they were proud. Later that day, I got a call from the firm that managed our family's real estate holdings. The managing partner's voice was tight. Ms. Blake, your father's trying to liquidate assets that are under your authority. And we need direction.
Do we proceed?
I leaned back in my chair, the power palpable on my skin. Deny the liquidation, I said, and issue an audit on every transaction made in the last 5 years. If anything looks suspicious, flag it for federal review. Silence. Then a quiet understood.
It was surgical now.
I wasn't just cutting them off. I was dismantling the illusion they built without me. And yet, that night, I stood by my window, watching the lights of the city pulse below, and whispered a question only the dark could hear. Why did I have to burn it all to the ground just to be seen? Aaron came up behind me, wrapped his arms around my waist. You okay? He asked. I nodded, but my voice cracked anyway. I shouldn't have had to do this to prove I mattered. He pressed his forehead against mine. You didn't have to prove anything. They just couldn't handle your light. I closed my eyes and decided I wasn't done yet. Because they hadn't said sorry. Not truly, but they would.
Soon.
The formal invitation came in a thick cream envelope, expensive, old-fashioned, like everything my father valued. Inside, emergency family meeting. Saturday, 6 p.m., Patterson Estate. No please. No signature. Just expectation. Aaron raised an eyebrow. You going? I smiled. Oh, I'm not just going. I'm bringing the terms. Saturday arrived like a court date. I wore black, sleek, powerful, merciless. My hair pinned up. No jewelry. Just presents. When I walked into that house, my house, though they didn't know it yet, the air shifted. My mother stood first. Then my father. Then my brother and sister, quiet in the corner. All four of them looked like ghosts trying to rehearse humanity. Leah, my father said. Voice dry. Eyes smaller somehow. Dad. He gestured to the dining table. Let's talk. I didn't sit. I stayed standing. You want to talk? I said. Let's make this efficient. I placed a folder on the table. Inside, a list. Every asset I'd removed. Every trust I'd restructured. Every LLC I'd absorbed. Signed, stamped, notarized. Their silence roared louder than any insult they ever threw at me. Why, my mother finally whispered. We're your family. I laughed. Not because it was funny, but because it was insulting. Family doesn't cut you out in public. Family doesn't feed off you and pretend you're irrelevant. Family doesn't humiliate you at a dinner they used your money to host. My sister sobbed quietly. My brother's fists clenched. My father sat down, deflated. What do you want, Leah? He asked, not in anger, but defeat. I walked to the head of the table, his chair, and I sat. What I want, I said slowly, is for you to listen. And for the first time in my life, they did. I told them about the nights I cried myself to sleep after they mocked my choices, about the weight of carrying them in silence, about the bitterness of building wealth only to be branded a failure. I ended with this. I loved you all more than I ever loved myself.
And you used it.
But I've learned something. Love without respect is just self-harm. Silence. Then my father whispered. I didn't know. I thought I was protecting the family. You weren't, I said. You were protecting your ego. He nodded slowly. You were the strongest one all along. Finally, he saw me. But it was too late for reconciliation. Because this wasn't a plea for love. It was a declaration of sovereignty. The following week, I closed the final account with a click. The last shared holding. The last financial thread tying me to them. It was done. My attorney called. It's official, Leah. Everything's in your name now. They've signed. It's over. Over?
No.
It had just begun. Because the old version of me, the quiet one, the giver, the daughter who begged for crumbs, she was dead. In her place stood a woman who burned her bridges and used the ash to build her throne. That Saturday, Aaron and I hosted a charity gala. Not in secret, not in spite, but in full light. I wore white. My name was on the banner, the check, the foundation. And as I stepped onto that stage to speak, hundreds of eyes on me, I thought of that retirement dinner. That moment he told me to leave like I was nothing. Now I was the one raising a glass. To all the women who were told to shrink, to be quiet, to disappear. I hope you know, your silence is not your debt. Applause thundered. Aaron smiled proudly from the front row. After the event, as we walked to the car, I spotted a familiar silhouette by the fountain. My father, alone.
He looked smaller now.
Not physically, but spiritually, like something in him had finally cracked. Leah, he said. I stopped, inches away.
Come.
Steady. I came to say, he swallowed. I was wrong. About everything.
About you.
For a second, the child in me stirred. The one who still wanted his love. But I didn't come here to collect approval. I came to finish the story. I know, I said. But I don't need your apology. He blinked, caught off guard. I just needed to stop apologizing to myself. And I walked away. Not angry. Not broken.
Free.
Because sometimes revenge isn't about destruction. It's about revelation. Making them see the version of you they tried to erase standing tall. Thriving. And untouchable.